Welcome to Bass Talk, presented by Z-Man, and we're going to talk bass fishing today. The season is winded down, and I've got Stephen Browning with me. And Stephen, how you doing today, buddy?
We're doing very well, Z-fans. How are y'all?
Everybody's good. We don't have anybody in the studio office today. You've got me, so I apologize. We didn't have that big crowd, but I'll give you a hand. You know what?
I appreciate that.
You've had a really interesting season. It's kind of like two seasons. I know you started off with the Classic. That was pretty good. Then things kind of didn't go as well as you probably wanted. You had, I think, 4 events that were a bit challenging. I think you started the first event out, got a check, did pretty good, and then it kind of went downhill. Then you turned it all around towards the second half of the season, and I think the last 5 or 6 events you've cashed in, and you had the biggest thing has been that second place finish that you had up there in, I guess that was up in New York, right?
It was in the Northern Open, the last Northern Open.
Very close. That would have got you into the Classic. I know that was disappointing.
Well, it was I did have those 4 tournaments right in a row. That, man, everything I did was just absolutely wrong. And I had a little time off and just tried to evaluate where I thought I went wrong and what I was doing wrong, and kind of revamp my practices and fishing more towards my strengths. My strengths are shallow water. We had a couple of deep water lakes there, Toledo Bend and Douglas Lake mixed in the group. And man, I just never put anything solid together on those 2 events, and my finish showed that. But when we got up to La Crosse, Wisconsin, I kind of turned things around. The river system, you can't beat them in my book. So I just felt like that was definitely going to be the one that either it's going to go continue downhill or we're going to get things going back up. And luckily we got off, I think, 6 checks in a row. Second place of Green Bay top 10 or top 11 actually.
Sure.
But just got things going in the right direction. And I'll be honest with you, I had maybe 3 weeks off the whole entire summer.
Yeah.
And including ICAST and the other events. And I was ready for a break. But then on the other side of the spectrum, I'm really kind of geared up and ready to get back out there after them.
That's what I was going to ask you, because momentum is everything in this game. Especially at your level. I mean, the guys are so good that it's really about getting positive momentum and kind of figuring things out along the way. And here you have built that momentum. There's still some tournaments I know you can get into. There's some FLW tournaments that are going on. There's probably some local stuff. I know your family wants to see you, but I also know you want to be out on the water fishing when things are going pretty good. So what's your plan?
Well, my plans, to be honest with you, are we're switch gears. We're going to do a little deer hunting. I'm carrying my son out to Kansas here in a couple of weeks to go do a youth gun season hunt with him, and going to spend a lot of time October, November, and December visiting some of the bodies of waters that the Elite Series will be going to next year. There's 2 or 3 that especially the Orange, Texas event on the Sabine River that I don't know anything about. I want to go back down to Falcon and revisit it while the water's real low, and just kind of get the balls rolling for next year. And hopefully, here in the last 3 or 4 years, I've been able to get off to a really good start on the first tournament of the Elite Series. I want to get off to that start again this year and just continue it instead of. I don't want to hit any bumps this year. I don't mind, a small bump, but man, when you hit those big bumps, and the way the point system is now with 1 point increments, when you have a bad one, it really affects you. And I want to do everything I possibly can to avoid those situations next year.
I hear you. Well, let's talk about your second place finish, because that was probably one of the biggest highlights of the year for you. Real exciting. It came down to the end there. I think the guy who ended up winning it. I mean, he won it by 3 or 4 pounds, but you kind of gradually just kept moving up, and you made a run at it, and that had been a big one to get into the Classic. But talk about the fishery itself, what you did, some of the techniques, some of the Z-Man baits that you used. We'd love to hear about that.
Well, you know, as the week went on, I pretty basically I had it narrowed down to 2 different baits, and the thing about it, they were both Z-Man products. And I'm going to show you guys here in a minute. I hope you guys will be able to see it. But on the Chatterbait Elite series, the Elite Chatterbait that we just came out with this at ICAST, introduced it at ICAST, there is a lot of difference between that particular Chatterbait and the original Chatterbait. The new Elite series Chatterbait, or I'll call it, I keep referring to it as Elites. It's just a Chatterbait Elite. It actually has kind of a teardrop, kind of a flat aspirin type head to it. And I noticed that using it over the last few months that bait will actually, I can get that bait deeper. You know, a lot of times with the original Chatterbait, it wants to ride high on you. It wants to rise up in the water column. But with this Elite Chatterbait, it'll stay down for you, and it kind of allows you to fish it a little bit deeper. And the grass at Cayuga was that I was targeting topped out in about 10 feet, 14 feet of water topped out in about 10 feet, and I was able to get that half-ounce Chatterbait Elite down and get it on top of that grass, and just, you know, you hear the word slow rolling, and that was kind of what I was doing. It was just reeling it fast enough to feel the blade vibration, but yet again, feeling that grass and ticking the tops of that grass. And, you know, it really, I think, I won't say half. Let's see, I think I weighed in 3 on the Chatterbait the first day, 2 the second day, and 2 the last day. And, you know, in targeting that same 14 feet of water, I took the new Palmetto bug and green pumpkin, and you can't go wrong with green pumpkin. Put it on 3/4 ounce slip sinker, and just stayed out in that 14 feet of water and flipped it, and just punching it through the grass. And that was the way the second day when I had the big stringer. I caught 4 real nice fish on that Palmetto bug, and just only had 1 bite on it the first day, and that's kind of. I told my wife if I could get 5 flipping bites a day, you know, I felt like I'd have a really good chance of winning. Only got 1 the first day. I had weighed 3 in the second day, and I think 2 or 3 in the last day. So, you know, it was a way to get a big bite, but it was just one of those that you weren't going to get very many bites the way I was fishing.
So let me ask you about that. It was kind of a 1-2 punch, I guess. Were you literally punching the grass with a 3/4 ounce weight, or were you fishing out deeper with the grass that was out below the surface and then trying to punch through it down deeper?
I was just pretty basically just trying to fish out on the deeper grass. The thing about you know, fishing that deep grass is a lot of times, especially around here, back when Lake Ouachita had a lot of grass in it, you could get more bites with a bait that really falls fast. And it's more or less getting a reaction strike from that fish instead of finessing them out of there. Sure. A lot of times you can take that big weight and punch that Palmetto bug right through that cover. And it wasn't that the cover was so thick that I had to use a 3/4 ounce weight. It was the fact that I was trying to use that 3/4 ounce weight to get a reaction strike, and that seemed to be the way that I had to trigger those bigger bites to commit.
So the water, you're saying the water that you were fishing was about 14 or 15 foot deep, but the grass was down lower. How far did the grass come up on that edge? Did it, you know, below the surface?
You could see it down about 10 feet. The water was really clear. When you got in that 8 to 10 foot range up on top of that grass, that you could start seeing it. And it was like a 10 foot. The water came out about 10 feet, and it went from 10 to 14 real fast. And that was that contour lines that I was trying to fish. And like I said, it worked out real well for me. Pete just never opened the door. You know, I thought the second day with the 20-pound stringer on there, that the door was going to get cracked open a little bit. Man, he didn't even think about it, you know. So it's hard to come back on a lake of that nature, you know, when 15, 16 pounds is a really good stringer. 20 pounds is a great stringer, and he had 2 great days, and he had 2 A pluses and an A minus, and I had 2 A minuses and an A plus, and that, you know, that just translates to second place.
Well, it was, again, still a great finish and one to be proud of, that's for sure. So, what about now? Let's back up a little bit and let's look at your last. Well, actually, it's more current. Let's look at your last Elite Series event up there at Oneida, and I think you just got into the money cut on that one. So it really doesn't matter as long as whether you finish 11th place or rather 11th or 12th, or you end up finishing at 48th. It's pretty much the same thing. So talk about your pattern there. I know a lot of guys typically there. The guys who win usually are focusing on the largemouth, but I heard a lot of people saying that smallmouth were a bigger factor this year, and maybe a combination of both. So how did that pan out for you up there?
I had the mindset, and that was another one of those tournaments. I put myself in a position either I win or don't get in.
Yep.
And I had targeted largemouth throughout the practice. And it was one of those deals where the lake was about 6 or 8 inches low, and you could just kind of sense that the largemouth were not good. They weren't going to play that huge role that they had in the past. And it was one of those deals that you could catch a few smallmouth early. Again, the Chatterbait and the Palmetto bug, the Chatterbait Elite and the Palmetto bug has been on my same rods for both weeks, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, that's my style of fishing. And but the largemouth just weren't as predominant. You couldn't you couldn't run through 10 of them to put together a stringer. It was like you were only going to get 3 or 4 bites a day.
Sure. So
you knew that you had to mix in a few smallmouth. The unfortunate thing was the 2 and 2.5 pound smallmouth that I was catching, they were just average size for that lake.
Okay.
You had to figure out the 3 to 3.5 pounders, and I just never got around that quality of a bite.
Did you get around where I read a lot about the schooling smallmouth, that guys were catching them schooling. Were you catching them that way, or were you catching them drop shot?
Jason, I got lucky. You say it's lucky. You put yourself in a position to become lucky. Sure. Running down the lake the first day, I saw like 3 come up chasing bait. I told my partner, I said, man, just hold on, because I'm fixing to do a 180 and jump up there and make a few casts. And I did that, and about the 2nd or 3rd cast with the Chatterbait Elite, I hook up and I catch me a good 3 1/4. And nice. That was about the only time that I saw fish in the areas that I was concentrating on, do any schooling at all. It was more just fishing a contour line. I was targeting, at 12-foot range, and just putting the trolling motor down and going. That's the thing about the chatterbait, man. You can cover a lot of water with it, and in my opinion, it does have the potential of getting a bigger quality bite. Okay. And so I have a lot of confidence with it. If need be, catching back up, to the leaders or maintaining. I just have a lot of confidence with that bait to get the right bite. So I just kept it in my hand, tried to cover as much water as I possibly could, and just kind of fell short.
Talk to us a little bit about the trailers that you're throwing on your chatterbait, depending on the conditions. I think that's important for everybody to understand at home.
Well, I use two different trailers. I like the flapping crawls. It gets back there and it has the little paddling action to it. The thing about a paddling crawls, I feel like it'll on the original chatterbait, it allows that bait to run just a little bit deeper. And when I say deeper, I'm talking about a foot. And a foot can make a lot of difference of taking a piece of cover and getting a reaction bite or not. And the other way is a scented jerk chats, and I've got one right here. Let me say, this is a Chatterbait Elite series, and I'm gonna pull this up real tight to the camera if I can. Turn it a little bit. See, you see, it's flat on top, and it just allows that bait to. For some reason, it just allows it to stay down. Take a little bit of Loctite gel and put it on the shank of the hook. not much, because it just doesn't take a whole lot. Here's a little bit. And then I take the jerk shads and just thread it up there on that. Run it up real good on that. And I promise you, give that right there about 2 minutes of dry time, maybe not even 2 minutes. Give it a minute of dry time,
okay.
And literally, unless a pike comes up and eats it off the back.
Okay.
I have a lot of that. But I can just about throw that bait all day long without having to change up trailers. And that's probably my favorite way to throwing the chatterbait, is put that jerk shads on the back end of it and super glue it up there, and you're good to go throughout the day. The Z fans will get their hands on some of these new Elite chatterbaits and start fishing them in that deeper water.
Sure.
I believe you'll find yourself catching a lot better quality fish than up there beating around on the bank with it.
That's a great tip, and you can, if you just look at the tournament results over this year, I don't care what lake in the country, whether you're up north or down south, the chatterbait has played a major role in not only winning some of these tournaments, but cashing checks. There's no doubt about it. It's probably, this year, I'd say it's probably been one of the best baits on both tours in a lot of situations.
I would say so. I just read this morning that Boyd Duckett was talking about him catching some of those schooling fish with the chatterbait. And, it is one of the most versatile baits that you can use. And, cover-wise, boat docks, stumps, grass, laydowns, you name it. It rocks. And, you can just throw it wherever you want to. And like I said, it just has a tendency of getting that little bit better quality bite than a spinnerbait, something that they see all the time. It's just changing it up for them.
Good deal. Well, let's talk a little bit just about the tours right now. We've got, again, we're winding down with the FLW Tour. They have a couple opens left. They just released their new schedule for next year. Apparently the opens are out. But what's interesting, I know you're a bass guy, but I bring this up because I'm curious. There's not a lot of conflict between the two schedules. Both schedules are out, and it looks like if you really wanted to, you could fish both tours. There's a couple events that are real tight next to each other and might affect your practice periods and that, but you could fish both. And I'm wondering if you're thinking about that at all, if that has crossed your mind.
Well, it always crosses your mind, but it's a little bit too much, just a little bit too much. I really and truly I talked to Dave Mansue with the PAA. He seems to think that the PAA is going to have a schedule similar to what they had, a non-conflicting schedule. Might try to fish some of the PAA events as fillers next year. We'll definitely fish either one, maybe two series of the opens, just depending on how everything falls, on a scheduling deal. I do know that there's probably several of the Elite Series guys that will fish the FLWs,
sure.
But I just don't see myself running FLW and bass.
Well, it's a lot. It is. I mean, you guys are on the road, enough as it is, fishing one tour and then trying to mix in some other events. So
right.
I'm sure your family will be a lot happier that
right. But you do have to take your hats off to FLW and bass for not conflicting. I think this is the first year in 2, maybe 3 years that they haven't had one. So you have to take your hats off to those organizations and at least allowing someone, logistic-wise, it may be tough, but it can be done, and you definitely have to take your hats off to both organizations for that.
It gives you an opportunity to go after some more money, so that's important for because it's a balance between working with your sponsors and then fishing the tournaments, and then you need every opportunity you can. So it is good that they're doing that. Well, Stephen, we appreciate it as always. It's been great talking to you. I know we're going to catch up here in a couple months. I mean, we'll probably be down in Florida somewhere shooting and doing some stuff for Z-Man. So that'll be fun. And we'll have a little downtime down there. But again, congratulations on the second half. It was a good season for you. You kind of got things going there and had some positive momentum. And I'm sure next year you're going to be focused and and ready to go after it again and have a great year next year on the Elite Series. So,
absolutely, Jason, I appreciate your time, and especially all the Z fans out there.
Thank you, buddy. We do appreciate it.